Hey guys, welcome back. BDCKR here. We're back with Season 9, Episode 59 of our weekly Q&A video/podcast. You're probably watching this on YouTube if our metrics are correct. So if you want, you can check out the links in the description to access this on a lot of different podcasting platforms. And you know, we actually looked at the metrics recently, and there's a healthy sort of number of downloads for the podcast. There's more than I thought. They've got sort of...
When you say healthy,
they've got a long tail. It's lower than any sort of reasonable metric of success, I would say.
Right.
But it's still a lot higher than I remember it being. And I think it's because the older episodes are getting more, and I think maybe slowly but surely me constantly trying to sort of pitch why people should listen to it as a podcast has caused more people to do it that way.
So I know there's extremes of statistical or analytical inaccuracy, with one edge being, say, Facebook, where the way they measure their videos and what people are watching them. So are you sure that it's actually something being watched? Like, do people just passively have I don't know. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's just...
Yeah, they might be downloading it, but not watching it. I know
Do you have to actively download it, or can you be subscribed and it just downloads automatically?
You can have it download automatically, but at that point, it's taking up space on their phone unless they're deleting it automatically.
Okay.
So I would actually be... I would be equally impressed by somebody who has, like, multiple gigabytes of unlistened to our podcast on their phone.
Right.
Or keeps the setting on to auto-download it, and then just deletes it every time after not listening to it. To me, both of those things seem like actually more effort than what constitutes a YouTube view.
Right.
Even if somebody is not consuming it at all, I think like taking up like 20 megabytes or however big a file size is on somebody's like device every single week is more impactful in my opinion than a view is.
Right.
And not like, you know, the people who are watching the whole thing and commenting and whatever, right? I'm talking about sort of the minimum for what a view is, which is 30 seconds of watch time. Right.
What is there minimum time for listening that counts towards a podcast? Like if you're not downloading it?
I think there might be. I think it might literally just be clicking play though. And I think it is a little bit different with a podcast compared to a YouTube video, right? Because for me at least, when I click on a podcast, right, it's very infrequent that I'm like, I'll finish this or I won't finish it, whatever.
It's more intentional.
But with longer YouTube videos, sometimes I won't finish them.
Right.
And especially, I think, the types of videos that feel more kind of just rambly talky like ours.
Right.
I don't necessarily feel bad. You know, there's a YouTuber called Northern Lion who's really entertaining. And he puts out content like constantly, like a huge amount. And so if I only like watch half of one of his videos, I don't care. I'll catch it on the next one, right? And so I imagine that if people are treating it the same way as I treat it, that a podcast listen tends to be a little more intentional and a little more in for the long haul. Although it's more likely that somebody's entirely doing something else while they're listening, which I don't care. I think that's the best way to listen to podcasts anyways.
So it sounds like what you're saying is that you're not our audience.
I am not. I am not our audience. But I am the creator. I've listened to every podcast episode.
That's true. You were here.
Exactly once. And I've gotten through 100% of the content we've covered in our podcast. I don't make a habit of going through a piece of media twice. So listening back to this too much would be, I think, boring for me. I couldn't be our own audience.
That's right.
Yeah. Anyways. Maybe let's get into our first question this week.
I'm going to point out, Teen Titans Raven, you're getting a really nice demonstration of why she is amazing. Her Special 2 does a huge amount of damage, and we talked about it on the weekly recap last week, but it's worth mentioning how great her passive is for making her the main damage dealer, the Special 2 specialist, and how she benefits from the later challenge characters' high stats, but does not get punished like the later challenge characters for only being able to knock out the opponent on a special, or the last hit of their Special 2.
Yeah. So there we go.
Amazing. Yeah.
Okay. So our first question, or our first comment this week, comes from Garrison Collins, and they say, "It was an honor to be attacked by you guys in the arena today. I recognize your handle," and then 2 like crying laughing emojis. "Thanks for beating me up." And this is a fun one.
Yeah, I don't know that there's anything to say, but it's neat that people are still playing and enjoying it, and that some of the people that we're playing against happen to be watching us.
Yeah, and that they recognize us. I think that, to me, that's the funny thing, is that somebody's going back through and recognizing being attacked. They're looking at their metrics and they go, oh, this guy kicked my butt. Because I think I would be more liable to recognize it if I was fighting somebody, right? Because I'm already there, although I never really read the names. I find that's one of the interesting things about watching back content versus experiencing it yourself, which is you tend to notice different stuff. So,
like when you're in a car. Yeah. If you're driving, you notice different stuff than when you're a passenger.
Or then when you're watching like a dash cam footage afterwards, right? So that's something that I've noticed with Injustice for sure, which is that playing, you're paying attention to who's on the team, the gear, whatever, you're going relatively fast. And your eyes don't need to be gravitating to the same spots while you're watching it. So you spend a lot more time looking at other stuff. And so I will catch the username sometimes, especially when we were live looking back at footage while we recorded. But I would almost never look at usernames just while I was playing. And we used to talk sometimes about sort of the card that somebody would pick or like the title that they would pick, right? When we were watching it, and that would never happen when I was playing. And the same thing, I play Valorant sometimes, right? Mm-hmm. And I take clips sometimes when I think I've done a good job. And you get the emotion and you get like what happened. But then when you watch the clip back, you can, all the places, I'm sure if you like did like an eye tracking thing, the places that you'd be looking in Valorant are like really narrow, right? You're looking like right where your crosshair is. You're maybe looking in the peripheral a little bit. You're looking down at sort of your ability buttons and whatever else. But then when I'm watching back a clip, I'm like, does the game actually look like that? Because I'm like looking at like the gun model, and I'm looking at sort of like the environment and like the
there's almost a depersonalization where you can have that distance. Yeah. So you can notice more things at once because you're not like when you're task oriented, like you're saying, you're so focused. Yeah.
It's more of an embodied experience where, and especially when it's a, Valorant is like, you're not paying attention while somebody shows up. You're just dead, right? Like in a second, and then you're sitting, waiting, watching other people play until the round ends. So you're focusing on the stuff that's going to kill you. You're not focusing on sort of the textures on the trees or whatever.
Right. So that kind of almost like it's almost like a hypnotic quality where you get to just enjoy the moment a little bit more than feeling like you're on edge. Like I'd imagine that's the difference between having like a kind of anxiety disorder like PTSD or something where you're on edge all the time and that you can't appreciate the things around you because you're just so what's activated. There's a phrase for that. Like it's just, that's gotta be, I don't know, I feel like that's gotta be such an intense but unpleasant experience to maintain that.
Yeah, well, I don't know nearly enough about what that feels like internally to know if that's an apt
I guess
comparison or not.
Maybe the closer one is driving. Like I don't mind driving. I don't enjoy it. I mean, I drive hours a day.
That's a big difference.
Yeah, I know, but I'm just thinking. No, I'm just thinking of the idea, not so much, I guess, the difficulty, but I'm thinking more along the lines of the attention. Yeah, like how much it requires your focus and your higher levels of thought. Yeah, and that sometimes it's good to not be on all the time. I don't know if I've talked about this, but I'm a bit of an introvert, and I feel like that when I can get along with people if I need to. Yeah, but that after a certain amount of time of being on, of being alert. Yeah, I find it very draining. Mm-hmm. I don't know, and along the lines too of being able to do that, I really miss that function where they used to let you watch the replays of fights. Yeah, like in real time, like you could see the action. And I'm sure this was like a huge cost to server in terms of bandwidth,
and like an unnecessary cost.
But it was such a good one. Yeah, like to me, I picked up so much on how defensive teams worked. Yeah. And how our teams played by being able to go back and watch. I actually enjoyed that a lot.
Yeah, but you were treating it like a pro. It's kind of like how in sports, right? Mm-hmm. Like the players will like watch their own games back so that they can see how they played, and they'll watch like the other team's games to see how they play, right? Mm-hmm. And it's this whole sort of like you're essentially researching yourself and other stuff. I guess watching back the clips is kind of like an athlete watching back sports, right? where they know how it felt. They know whether they scored the goal or not, or, you know, the basket or whatever, right? They know the outcome. But then in the moment to moment, you can see sort of where your decision making was limited, or where, you made the shot and it felt good, but you can go back and see where everybody was positioned around you, and sort of what the other options were, or what the counterfactuals were. Like, if I didn't make that shot, how likely would that have been for somebody else to sort of recover it, and then
and there's a lot of
really to hurt us.
There's limits on because of this game. There's a limited number of choices of things you can do. So I'm not even gonna pretend it's even anywhere near as sophisticated as that, but it is really useful to be able to look at it a little bit dispassionately. And if you're gonna, because of the way the game is played, I think, at least for me, a lot of the responses in the fights are instinctual. I think I want to do this, I want to do that. And in order to make adjustments to improve what you're doing, you have to have that sort of distance to look at what's happening. You need to
engage sort of type of decision making process, a much more sort of slow, deliberate, conscious one. So it is a lot like sports, though, and taking it seriously, where I feel like the vast majority of people who are playing Injustice are just playing it and enjoying it, right? Most people playing sports are not watching back their own games, right? Whether they're watching any games, and they're probably not watching the games of the people that they're playing against either, right? But you might still watch the games of the pros, which is, I guess, us in that case. You're watching like content creators watching other people play, right?
Oh wow!
But then the people who are taking it more seriously maybe do try to watch back and learn.
With a really loose definition of pro, then if you were here, you'd see the air quotes.
Well, you could still watch your maybe high school teams game or whatever. That's
true,
right?
That's true.
The people taking it a little more seriously, anyways.
That's right.
Yeah. Anyways, so our next comment comes from Smol, and they say, "Where's your co-host or friend? I miss hearing him." And so they're referring to me. I really appreciate that. That's a fun comment. I will say that we've been doing this for a while, and we used to get different comments. And some comments that we would get is that I have a squeaky voice, right? Yeah. Way back when. I don't think I have a particularly squeaky voice anymore, which is good. But so we would.
It is your voice, right? Yeah. You know what I mean?
It's the voice I got.
Yeah.
And the other thing that's funny is that when people were guessing at a relationship,
right,
it used to be either you guys are friends or you are gay, and that was sort of
that was the binary.
That was the two things that people would say.
There's no other possibility.
Yeah. And more often.
Hold on, brothers. You got that a couple times. But the vast majority of it was
I think actually more than anything else, people were like, "What is your relationship? Are you gay?" Which was funny. So I will say that this is a breath of fresh air on two counts, right?
Yeah.
The assumed relationship, co-host or friend. I like it. Co-host makes us sound professional. Friend just is saying it seems like you guys have a relatively positive relationship. I'm happy with both of those, right? And then I miss hearing him, which is the absolute 180 from, man, that kid's voice is annoying.
Oh gosh.
So what I'm basically saying is that this is the positive comment, right? This is the culmination of all the negative comments we got before to something that is much nicer on both counts, right? The assumed relationship is good, and the feedback is good. It had to be worse for me to know know how good I have it when it's better.
So to talk about an abstract way, maybe even to address the question, is that we've been doing this for how many years now?
A lot of years.
This is our season 9. I was going to say 5th season. It's not our 5th season. It's the 5th month of the year. It's season 9. A lot of the seasons stretch out for months, some for even years. And I think, every once in a while, I feel like sometimes it's more important, at least for the weekly recaps, it's more important to get it out than it is to make sure that we do it together. This is different. Clearly, it's hard for me to have a conversation by myself.
Yeah, it's hard for you to just talk for half an hour kind of on a really loose script.
Right.
And by script, it's really more of just notes about what you think you probably want to say.
Yeah. So I think what's driven me to keep on doing it, part of it is that listen, I know that people get stuff out of it, that people enjoy the updates, they get information.
Yeah.
And I also feel like it's weird, the kind of relationship I have, because it's not a huge amount of money. It's still more than, well, actually, it's less than our ad revenue now. But that we have these people, patrons, who specifically supported us because of the content that they're able to get for free, but they want to say, hey, we appreciate you.
Yeah.
And then I feel an outsized obligation to that compared to, I think, what most people would consider the value of the actual money.
Yeah.
And so it's weird. It's a funny, I don't know. I'm not exactly sure how that relationship works in my mind.
Yeah.
But it's weird how I'm compelled.
Yeah.
In a way.
And what I will say is I miss hearing him. I'm about to have a weird schedule. I'm about to be very busy for a while, for a couple months. So I
think I might be doing the recaps on my own for a while.
Yeah.
But we're going to still try to do these sort of weekly conversations.
Yeah, as much as possible. It might be slightly spottier, but we're going to make every effort to not leave people in the lurch.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to do our best, but if the schedule might be weird, we might end up, doing something more like trying to batch like 2 weeks at once, which won't make a huge difference to you as a listener, I think. The only thing is that we seemingly cannot stop ourselves from talking about it. We love saying if it's like more than like a day in the future that we're going to post it, that you're hearing it from the past. Like that's not how like most YouTube videos work, period. And like it's something special just because we have such a strong routine that it feels like a novelty to us, and it feels like it's worth remarking on, even though it's probably not. Yeah. So I guess that's your warning. I guess
this is we've got a comment later that there'll be a teaser. All right, maybe a couple comments away we've got the teaser anyways. I was thinking I should mention something, but I'm jumping ahead of myself.
Yeah. So if the posting gets weird in the next little bit, you know why. Anyways, this next one comes from _stampthekid_, and they say, any ways to get better gear more efficiently and effectively besides multiplayer, as I can't consistently play to get top 5%, and most players hack to the top of the leaderboards literally every time.
Right. I guess there's a couple things. One thing that's maybe ignored or overlooked is just how useful the gear locker is.
Yeah.
It's a decent price. You get lots of gears. You don't need to worry about having to get necessarily good gears, because when you shatter gears, they give you more crystals after you've max promoted them.
Yeah.
So it's very easy to grind credits. It's not very easy to grind Survivor or multiplayer the same way unless you've already got gears. I think because if you want to have wins that are pretty consistent without much in the way of gears, you got to be having low level fights.
Yeah, or faster even, separate from consistent.
Right. Yeah. So it's both a question of, I mean, in my mind, it goes hand in hand that if you're going to be good, in order to be really fast, you have to be winning consistently. You can't really be fast if you're only winning every once in a while, and you're not finishing a ladder for the bonuses. Yeah. So the good thing about the gears in multiplayer, at least some of the most important ones like Tantu Totem, is that there's nothing missing for multiplayer.
Yeah.
Multiplayer has every single season reward in a cycle, 31. It will come around. If you're still playing Injustice in another 31 weeks, you'll get your next shot at it. So you're almost better off not stressing and putting in too much time trying to rank up in multiplayer if you're unsuccessful.
Yeah, especially if you can't play to get the top 5%.
Yeah.
Right? If you're not getting the exclusive reward, multiplayer is not worth very much of your time. I don't know what the exact odds are, but you want to spend kind of like a really low percentage of your time getting the really easy sort of like top 50% or whatever, right? Just you want probably the highest tier that you can get while putting in very little effort.
Right.
And then as soon as it starts to become grindy, you probably want to swap to something else.
Right.
Because at that point you're getting diminishing returns, right? You are getting better rewards by being in a higher tier, but you're also getting way less resources per like unit of time that you put into it, per like hour or like 15-minute increment or whatever.
I feel like if you're having trouble getting the top 5% in multiplayer, you're better off spending your first hour doing the challenge.
Yeah.
maybe doing Survivor, but definitely grinding Bonus Battle 6. You'll level up your characters, and you will also generate a lot of income to spend on gear lockers. It is at least Stamp the Kid has gotten the first part right, which a lot of people don't figure out until later, is that you really do need gears. If you improve your characters too fast before you get gears, then they become less effective in multiplayer. Then you're facing other teams that have lots of really good gears. They have an advantage over you. You're going to be more of your time spent in multiplayer will be wasted because you're going to have trouble.
Mm-hmm. So there we go. Next question comes from Xavier Boudrot. It's Boudrot and it's Xavier. As always, let us know if we're pronouncing it wrong.
Is that Xavier? Because I always thought Professor Xavier is how they pronounce it.
Is it Xavier or Xavier? Is that what you're
Xavier?
saying?
I just wonder if there's a version of it where you pronounce it Javier.
Javier.
I don't know.
Maybe. I don't know.
Please.
Like I said, let us know.
It made me think
because
that
it might be
Javier
Boudrot. Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
Boudrot feels right though. I don't know if it is or not.
Yeah.
Because
but Boudrot French would have been spelled EAU or EAUX instead of OT.
But like Boudrot or something. There's too many ways of pronouncing this.
Yeah.
The problem is I can think of a bunch of ways to pronounce it in sort of languages that I am vaguely familiar with, like the vowel sounds of. Right. And most of the sort of North American English versions of it feel wrong in my mouth. Right. So Boudrot is like the closest thing that sounds like a real name. Anyways, this person says, it honestly is amazing y'all still make videos and this game is still online. I remember playing this in high school, lol. Keep it up. Love the vids.
If you do and you're interested in this, we're going to be talking about this. If things go right, we will be talking about this a lot more next week.
Yeah, we've got a bit of a fun thing coming, and it's a bigger we than normal is all I'll say. When I say we, it's a larger, more royal we. I don't know if I'm using that right. Coronation actually just happened. Speaking of more royal, I don't know if we have anything to say about it, but
okay. So King Charles, I was going to say Prince Charles. King Charles just looks so tired. He did not look like he was enjoying himself. And
I didn't watch it. I just saw some pictures.
So
of
did
it.
I. Yeah, and it feels like he's just found a bunch of stuff in his closet. Like he was just he had so much stuff in his hands, like stuff, and he was dressed up so much. It's like he gone into like they had like a Halloween bin or something, and he just pulled out a bunch of stuff and got dressed up.
I saw in like that RPG like text like you are over encumbered and can no longer run. Put on it because it's just like he's holding so much stuff. Yeah, it felt there was a lot of stuff where I was seeing people post it out of context, mostly to make fun of it. Because I think definitely the people that I like sort of follow or see content from are much further on the side of anti rather than pro monarchist.
Right.
And so, of course, I know that I only saw the stuff that people wanted to make fun of.
Right.
And it would probably be a very different, more nuanced experience to actually watch the whole thing. But I just saw a bunch of really goofy pictures of different stuff, and so I was having a good time with it because I'm not too bothered one way or another. I'm just not that invested. Right. I'm not invested in making fun of it particularly.
But we are way more than say the United States because officially, he's our monarch.
Yeah.
Like we have, I don't even know how to describe it, right? We've sort of got democracy. We're also.
It's a constitutional monarchy, I think.
Yeah. So we're part of the Commonwealth.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It's just, I have mixed feelings about it.
He's going to be on our money soon, I think.
Yeah,
I don't know if that was real. I saw something. That's the thing is that like I have enough distrust of just like random article headlines now, and so whenever I'm not interested in something, I have information in my head that feels like it might be a fact, but I also know that I put no effort into verifying it, so that it's also entirely possible that it's just a hoax. So I said that, and I was like, I think he's gonna be on I said he's gonna be on our money now, and then I realized I have no clue if that's true at all. And at the end of the day, I don't really care.
Doesn't really
matter.
It's
not a big deal. I guess it's like
impact on our life.
What it's going to be is it's going to be a way of distinguishing old and new bills for a little while.
Yeah.
Right. Except in a much more subtle way than when we moved from that sort of like cotton paper to like plastic.
I don't know why I just made this connection. It is because each year, like, I mean, I'm sure like money, like coins, for example, have a different year thing.
Yeah.
But nobody cares about it until there's a real transition, say, with the material that's used. So like old dimes had silver in them.
Yeah.
Or money went from paper to that synthetic plasticky whatever.
Or the old toonie to the new toonie. The $2 now has like a little hologram, like maple leaf on it.
Oh,
don't you remember when they did that? And they were like exceptionally shiny. I don't know if old toonies when they were like freshly minted were shiny too.
I think they were.
But there was like a while where they felt like exceptionally shiny. They might have changed the material somehow to make it so that they like burnished slower, or I might just have like fresher ones. I don't know if burnish is even the right word.
Burnish is actually making something shinier.
Oh.
So it'll be the opposite. So
tarnish?
It develops a patina.
Patina? Whatever.
Tarnish is right. I think tarnish is right.
But yeah, and then there's these two little circles that are like maple leaf, like little mini metal holograms. And that was pretty cool. I was at an age when that happened where I was like looking at coins and going, cool. And that doesn't mean young. I want to clarify. I'm not
last week.
Yeah, I think I might still be at that age now. It feels like something that I might grow out of. So I'm treating it like it's something that I did. I'm not sure if that's true or not.
And I think that's such a good quality to like that. You know how people sometimes use it as an insult, you're easily amused? I think that's actually like a great quality to have because it means that life is just so much more joyful. I would love to be more easily amused.
It's funny because I've heard you say that so many times, and I don't actually know how many times I've heard somebody use the term easily amused as an insult. I think being around you, I've now heard you argue against that as a thing that you should say much more often than I've ever heard somebody actually say that. And I'm sure you've heard it somewhere at some point. I'm sure it's not based off of nothing. But I think maybe that's fallen out of favor. Because there's a lot of very biting insults that I think I've seen people say at one time or another. And easily amused is not one of those things that feels like there's some sort of sting to it. You know?
And the other thing about the changing of the money and stuff, I don't know why I made this connection. So you know that I told you, I might have said it on this podcast before, is that there's grippers, those hand grippers that you can squeeze.
Yeah, it's the strength training tool.
And so most people are used to seeing the grippers that you can get in the department store. They're not that hard. You do that for volume, and then there's other grippers.
I know you said department store. I did hear apartment store.
There's the grippers that are harder, so you can't do them for reps like that, and they're meant to test and train your grip strength. And it's funny because even in that niche world, there is enough changes and very subtle changes, and there are collectors that actually want that stuff, so that because they can identify the different versions of a particular gripper, they will pay a big premium for the older grippers that are no longer available. It's just it amazes me.
That's very funny to me. Yeah. It's so incredibly funny to me, and the reason why it's funny to me is it's like I know that there's nuances and subtleties to it, and you've sort of explained some of them to me, but at its basis, it's just like this takes a certain amount of like pounds of force to close. And they're like, I like this old one because it's got like a different color metal on it.
It's not even that. No, but it's not even. If it was a different color metal, then everybody could tell the difference. I'm saying that there's a difference in, say, so a bevel. One might have a deeper and sharper bevel than the other to identify it as an older one. And the markings might be, instead of being stamped, they're engraved.
Yeah.
So there's a difference. The spring manufacturer that used to do darker springs and now it does shinier springs. Those distinctions matter, and it tells people
the darker and shinier springs. This is different colors of metal.
It's not even like it's polished, and it's not like it's just weird. Like I don't want to say it's weird to make light of it or make fun of it, but it amazes me that there are people who care so much about it that they're willing to pay like a big premium for it.
I like that you're so excited about it, because I think I am holding two kind of opposing feelings inside of me. Because a part of your excitement is a little infectious, and a part of me thinks, oh, that's kind of interesting, you know, and you care a lot about it, and there's nuances, and I like it when there's little sort of nitty gritty details to dig into that most people don't care about, because I care about a lot of those things. And so that's one part of me who really wants to get on this bandwagon with you. And the other part of me thinks that this is the least interesting thing that anyone's ever talked about. And that's also not to belittle it, because I think there's a lot of stuff that I care about that absolutely nobody cares about at all, or that a very few people do, and that if I talked about it, I would sound exactly like you. But on one hand, I'm like, I'm glad you're glad about it, and I think it's cool that this is true. And on the other hand, I'm like, this is the most boring thing anybody's ever cared about. They feel like they're at odds, but I'm holding this contradiction in me. And I genuinely enjoy it. There's something I enjoy about thinking that it's so boring, but still, like, kind of, despite myself, liking it a little bit.
When I'm in the right frame of mind, and I'm not in a rush to do anything, I'm not on a deadline, I'm not whatever.
Yeah.
There is something about listening to somebody who is really enthusiastic about something.
Yeah.
Something, and their enthusiasm is infectious. It's not just that they love it and they go on about it. It's there's something that's infectious. That part matters so much. And so I'll listen to somebody who's an expert in something, who wants to explain something to you. I find some of those people so fascinating.
Yeah.
It's I mean, maybe we'll find somebody like that will be listening to this podcast when we're talking about Injustice. And I don't play Injustice, but man, this game sounds pretty cool.
Almost certainly not.
Almost, I know. I was just making that up.
And I think it's interesting when there's somebody who is passionate and able to broadcast that passion, because I think there's a lot of people who are really, really knowledgeable about something. I think most people are really, really knowledgeable about at least one thing that most people aren't.
Yeah.
And people are sort of different levels of able to communicate, not the information, but the enthusiasm.
Yes.
And
that matters more.
And I think it's definitely a certain type of person. So it's nice when you get that mix of stuff where, you know, I didn't really understand or know or care about earbuds, IEMs, headphones at all.
Right.
But then listening to Critical, the YouTuber, I could get an appreciation because I saw somebody who like really pursued a knowledge, and it's something that feels like it should be so accessible because it's like, oh, you listen to it and they sound different, right? But then I'm like, wow, my ears are bad because I can't you put a better earbud and a worse earbud on me and I don't know, and somebody says like, oh, like what's like the like frequency response profile of this, and I'll go, I have no clue, I don't even know how I'd sort of figure that out, and then he can just like put something on and go, oh yeah, this is V-shaped, so it's a little more like this, and I'm like, I don't know, you know, it's wizardry to me. But I find the talking about it compelling,
and I'm sure there's some wizardry, and I this is one of those anecdotes that I love.
Yeah.
So apparently when doctors have the stethoscope, they listen to people's hearts, they hear heart sounds, and there's supposed to be different qualities to what you hear, and different kinds of things that tell you information about what's going on in the heart. So apparently there's a study where they took a bunch of cardiologists. So these are doctors who are not only doctors, but they specialize in this one area. They've done internal medicine, and then they specialize another couple of years to specialize in the heart. So they listen to heart sounds, and when these doctors were not given any history and listened to heart sounds, there was very little correlation between the assessments of what they heard and compared to the, you know, just what they reported that they heard. But when they got the history, there was great correlation. So I think the interesting thing is that there is not only the ability to learn something, but a lot of times when we expect that to be true, it sort of fulfills that belief, even though a lot of it is that they're convincing themselves that's what they hear, at least for that example. So part of me wonders, like, how much of that is really that one particular skill, and how much of it is that they've just picked up on so many other things.
That like you need to integrate it with other stuff, and part of the stuff you need to integrate it with is kind of like the knowledge that gives away the answer a little bit,
right? And
then you go, oh yeah, these pieces of information match up, right? What I'm hearing matches with the history, matches with, you know, what I expect it to be.
So it's the expertise is not any less. It's just the expertise may not be in that one specific area where it's just listening to the sounds. You know what I mean? Like, so I think it's just kind of neat because some of it, if it was just a sound, maybe that would be reproducible. Like more easily reproducible, but it's going to be harder to reproduce 6 years of medical school, 6 years of postgraduate education and 4 years of medical school, and try to replace that with just somebody listening to sounds and hearing it.
And you know, that's neat. There was another I think we'll probably end it in like a minute here when this conversation sort of naturally wraps up. But there was a really interesting video that was posted to Tom Scott's channel, not by Tom Scott. He did sort of this like guest thing where he brought in people for like a month, I think, for like his weekly videos. And it was a video about how you could tell the difference in sound between hot water being poured into like a glass and cold water.
I saw that.
And when it was you can, it meant that like you as an individual can. And if you just heard them side by side, you could probably actually guess which one was right. Even though until that moment in time, you didn't know that there was a difference. That's a really cool video.
Yeah.
I forget what the reason why was either. Or two. And so like all I'm left with was the idea that they said, hey, you can probably do this. And they played the sounds back to back and I got it right. And I said, how did I get that right? And then they explained it to me and I lost the explanation, but that sense of wonder clearly has stuck with me a little bit.
Those are my favorite kind of essays. When I read something and they explain a concept to me of something that I observe normally, it's like a revelation.
Yeah, there's things that teach you about the world, and then there's things that teach you about yourself and like sort of how you exist in the world.
Yeah.
And things like essays and things that can teach you about yourself are shocking and very compelling. One of the facts that I've learned, and this is a little bit funny and a little bit like weird and inappropriate, that also throws me for a loop, is that, and this is sort of a little bit of evidence of handedness being genetic. And I'm going to use medical terms. We're not gonna be juvenile about this, okay? But your handedness is really heavily correlated to which one of your testicles sits lower, because they don't sit at the same height. Exactly. Because that would let them knock into each other and it would be damaging for them, right? Over the long period.
I guess I hadn't considered that.
One of them sits a little bit lower.
Yeah.
And your handedness is really heavily correlated to it.
So is it that it's correlated? Because what I've read is that there's typically one will hang lower the same side for everybody, and right-handedness is more common, so the correlation would exist even if there wasn't a necessary correlation between the two things.
No, it's specifically that left-handed people are often flipped. Like, are specifically flipped. Okay. And so you can tell if somebody is I
think it would be easier giving them a pen than the other way around.
Yeah.
Like I think...
yeah. But what's really compelling about this piece of information, and so it is specifically correlated with handedness in a weird way, where most lefties are flipped compared to, so like 10% of people are lefties or whatever, and that 10% almost always has which one hangs lower flipped. And so it's a very funny piece of information where if you know which hand somebody writes with, you probably know which one of their testicles that's lower. And that's a piece of information that people probably usually don't have about themselves. And so it's a very sort of public piece of information, and you can use it to extrapolate with a relatively high degree of accuracy a very private piece of information that person maybe doesn't know. And I just think it's really funny.
I think it's just funny that this is a podcast or a video about injustice.
Yeah.
And how far we've gone afield.
And that's all we have time for today, folks.
That feels about right place to end.
Yeah. I didn't write a shout out for Eliza, but the first thing that popped in my head is I wanted to say a shout out to Eliza Lower Testicle Caton, and I know I can't say that. But
is
I
Eliza
guess
right-handed or left-handed?
Well,
that would be the better thing. Eliza left-handed or Eliza right-handed Caton?
I don't have that information. I'm gonna hedge my bets and say right-handed Caton.
Okay. All right.
Anyways.
90% chance of being right.
Yeah. We'd also like to give a huge thank you to all of our lovely supporters on Patreon.
And that would be Korey Ashcraft supporting us on the Last Word tier, Alexis M supporting us on the Your Message Here tier, Michael Devries, Irvin Ruiz, Hoshi 127, and Drew Chapman, who are supporting us on the credited level. And all the lovely people whose names you'll see on the screen who have supported us at some point during this current pandemic.
So there you go. Thank you so much for your support, and thanks so much to all of you for watching. We'll see you next time.
Komoda.